Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Coco and Daltz podcast. I'm not Coco.
And I'm not Daltz.
And this week we're talking about a movie that is a Netflix original. And I think maybe, Coco, you should take it away and describe and provide the audience with a summary.
So we watched The Last Thing He Wanted, The Last Thing That He Wanted.
The
Last Thing He Wanted. Okay,
Yeah.
That's how much we liked this movie. I can't even remember the name of it.
It stuck with you.
It was released on Netflix on February the 21st, so it's only been out for about a week and a half, 2 weeks if you're listening to this in real time.
And why wouldn't you be?
Exactly. You should be subscribed. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Google Play, really anywhere.
And you can actually come to our house and listen to us record it too, because now we have a live studio audience.
Oh, that's true. And we've got the scroll, the Times Square marquee around our dining room where we
also have
record.
that on the outside of the house.
We do. So The Last Thing He Wanted is about Anne Hathaway, who plays a journalist working for the Atlantic Post. Very clearly supposed to be the Washington Post, but I guess Jeff Bezos wanted too much money to license use of the name. So she's working for the Atlantic Post. It's
If I
the
could
80s.
just interject there, that's a big territory to cover, is the Atlantic.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, that's a big ocean.
It is. So it's the early 80s. She's down in Central America. She's covering the Sandinistas. She gets pulled off that assignment to follow Ronald Reagan around on the campaign trail for his re-election in 84, which looked pretty stultifying. And she ends up dropping out of that assignment as well because her father, played by Willem Dafoe, who is a gun runner, got sick
Randomly.
yeah, and needed her to complete one last big job for him so he could make a lot of money. So she flew down to Costa Rica to sell arms to, I'm not sure if it was the Contras or the Sandinistas.
It was hard to tell.
The Contras, I think, were in Nicaragua, weren't they?
Well, it was hard to tell.
Okay. So she sold arms to some nefarious terrorist/freedom fighter group in Central America. And
Some guy who looked like Javier Bardem's brother.
from there, things, believe it or not, got convoluted after that.
Wait a minute. No, it was convoluted before that.
I wasn't really... So at the end of the movie, when they kind of wrapped up all the loose threads with some exposition, at that point I was like, okay, I think I understand what was going on. But between when the arms deal went south, because that's what arms deals generally do.
Yeah. Spoiler.
Yeah, things took really crazy turns. Somehow she hijacks a car. She ends up at some weird bathhouse run by Toby Jones, being his housekeeper, allegedly. She sleeps with Ben
I thought
Affleck
he was doing like
randomly.
a Truman Capote thing there too.
Yeah, so it was really kind of convoluted. There was not a lot of explanation for what was happening, and everybody kind of talked in hushed tones.
It was hard to hear what they were saying.
So it was really hard to hear, and we're not 85, so I was like, maybe we need to have the closed captioning on so we can...
Oh, you should have suggested that, because I was thinking that as well.
Yeah, kind of understand it.
Yeah.
So all of this to say, The Last Thing He Wanted has a 4.3 out of 10 rating on IMDb and a 7% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and I would kind of concur with that. What about you, Daltz? What did you think about the movie, the plot, the acting, all of it?
I thought it was like a Hallmark movie that was ready to, go mainstream. It's like, oh, we're going to make an edgy Hallmark movie, and it's going to be this woman who takes charge of her life and does these crazy things, and it was just out of control. There wasn't one linear thread throughout the whole movie. It was like, I thought it was going in this direction, and the next thing I know, she's trading arms with these guys, and then the next thing I know, she's cleaning this guy's resort in the Caribbean. And what does this got to do with this? I mean, it was just completely convoluted. I was confused throughout the whole thing. I got to admit, sometimes when I'm watching a movie, I'll say to Coco, what did he say or what did she say? And the movie started, and I never got any of it.
Right.
And I just decided not to, because I didn't know, as we watch movies, we don't tend to inform each other during the movie whether we like it or not, or indicate either way whether it's a good movie. So I didn't want to be like, Coco, what the F is going on?
Although I can a lot of times tell when you're checked out because you will pick up your phone frequently. And I think the first time you did that last night was about 30 minutes into it, and I was like, yeah, he's not.
Well, I try not to
it.
do that because I don't want to give that away. Now that I know that you know that that's an indication, it's like, yeah, I need to check my email because this movie's not doing it for me. So I'm trying not to do that. But in this movie, I wanted to check my phone in about the 5-minute mark because I was completely checked out of it. Anne Hathaway, I thought was fine. I expected more from her because I have a great deal of respect for her and other movies that she's been in. She was just fine. Ben Affleck, I don't know what he's got going on with his face, but I'm just not. And he played Ben Affleck. I mean, he was fine. Rosie Perez, I had a hard time understanding what she was saying because of the whole muted audio, and then hers seemed to be different from other people's. Her audio was weird. Willem Dafoe, I thought was crazy Willem Dafoe, so he was pretty good, but I just... none of it came together for me. It seemed like there was 4 separate stories going on at the same time, and you thought that one would dovetail into the other, and then everything would come together, and it would all the pieces would come together, and it didn't meld together at all for me.
Yeah, there were definitely a lot of things I didn't understand. I didn't understand why she got sent to the TWA lounge at the airport. Like, was she meeting somebody? Was she just signaling, I'm your contact person now? Like, I didn't get that. And then she got thrown out of the TWA lounge, which was apparently an attempt at extraction by the French intelligence agency.
Right.
Like, it was...
But that was telegraphed to me, though, because the woman who saved her from the TWA lounge was very pointed at, you must do this and you must do that. And it seemed like I thought she was a CIA agent or somebody. I thought she was in on it.
Well, I didn't know I couldn't tell if she was friend or foe. Like, I had no idea. And I didn't even know what the purpose was of her even going to the lounge in the first place.
Well, so I'm not sure about the purpose of a lot of these events in the movie.
Yeah, the performances were just fine. There was nothing outstanding. The plot was difficult to follow. Apparently, this is based on a book by Joan Didion from the 90s, which... you shouldn't have to read a book to understand what happened in the movie. I realize that movies can be changed from books. That happens more than once, but you shouldn't have to read a book to get it. Like, I went to both the book Wikipedia and the movie Wikipedia after the movie to try to figure out, like, and
that's a bad sign.
And neither one of them really had a whole lot of details about the plot, so maybe that's a bad sign too. I don't know.
There wasn't much to work with there. I mean, it was cheesy, and it had this brown filter on it that gave it some sort of the 70s or 80s, I guess it was. I got that from the overdressed sets and the pointed, clothes and everything that everybody was wearing. I got all that, and maybe that was part of it, was the filter, was to make it look a little bit older. But at some points it made it look really cheesy, and it made it look, again, like some sort of Hallmark movie that was slapped together in a week. Like, this really felt like it was thrown together in a hurry, this movie. It's like, okay, Hathaway, Affleck, Dafoe, Perez, their schedules align right here. Yeah. We got 6 weeks to make this movie.
And those are all good actors.
Right.
Like, they've all been nominated for or won Academy Awards. I think even Rosie Perez. So this should be...
You'd think it would be good.
It's not like what the sum is greater than its parts or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, the sum is not as great as its parts.
You would think, and then the idea, when you read, I hadn't heard anything about it, and then you read me the plot summary about a journalist, and I said, well, you got me at a journalist because I want to watch that. And this really didn't have any... The editor I didn't buy. I mean, he was just a cantankerous stereotype editor guy.
He looked like Steve Kerr.
He did look like Steve Kerr.
I
was trying to think of who he looked like, but he looked like Steve Kerr.
I totally thought, like, when they first showed him, he was kind of far away, and I was like, is Steve Kerr, like, moonlighting as a Netflix actor? Like, what's going on?
Well, they're running out of content, so, maybe they're running out of actors, too. Who knows? Hey, Steve Kerr, come on. Act for us.
I actually think it's kind of funny that you thought it was a Hallmark movie, because
it felt like a Hallmark movie.
The thought of Hallmark touching the Sandinistas and, like, Iran-Contra is like the funniest thing in the world.
It was like the edgy Hallmark movie and had swearing in it. And it's like, okay, Hallmark Midnight or something like that. Like, it's a different brand, you know what I mean?
Hallmark X.
Right, yeah. And so now there's swearing and there's nudity. And there was some interesting, like, it had so much potential, and I think that maybe this is because of the source material, because it was a book from Joan Didion, but like the lead protagonist, the protagonist, I should say, has suffered through breast cancer. So there was an interesting thread there, but it was just kind of the way it was revealed was awkward, and it wasn't really a thread. And there wasn't that moment where, subtle or otherwise, I mean, Hollywood is not subtle, but sometimes it can do things in subtle ways. Mm-hmm. This was like not. It was in the opposite direction of being even subtle. You know what I mean? It was. I don't know. It could have been a lot more there. There could have been a lot of potential there. The relationship with the dad, so Willem Dafoe and Anne Hathaway, I got that it was conflicted, and there were some funny scenes with him in his house and stuff like that, and she's trying to look after him. But it was just one step. Like usually a story of this caliber, you're trying to build up within the 3 acts, right? You have the conflict, you have the chase, and then you have the resolution. Essentially, this just felt like it was all 1 act kind of scenes. It's like setting something up that didn't come, and then setting something else up that didn't come, and there was no resolution, and there was no conflict, and it was just kind of weird. It was just a weird jigsaw puzzle of a movie to me that just didn't fit together at the end.
And when she delivered the arms, they put a mine in the ground, and then they blew up a dog.
Yeah.
So
I knew you were out right there.
Before that, I was like, I don't really know what to think about this. And then the dog blew up, and I was like, oh yeah, you can't do that. Like, you can't do that. Like, come on.
No dogs were harmed during the filming of that movie, I might add.
Well, yeah. Well,
because Hallmark would not do that. They would not harm a critter.
Well, I don't know. Now they've got the Sandinistas and the arms deals, like
Hallmark : Sandinistas.
That isn't Sandinista an album?
Clash.
The Clash. Yeah, that's right. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
There we go. This movie could have benefited from some Clash mentality.
It could have benefited from some
a lot
Clash soundtrack, because that would have that would have added to. And one other thing I should mention too is that there was some supremely cheesy special effects in this movie. In the climax of the movie, at the end scene that I won't spoil because it's
adults hate spoilers.
I don't like the spoilers. Why would you want to spoil a movie that you're not going to watch? But
well, maybe that's why we should spoil it, because we're telling people not to watch this movie.
So there's a scene at the end of the movie where somebody is falling in the water after being shot, and it looked like it was a painting. I mean, it didn't even look real, and a person took forever to fall, and they were falling in a way that you would never fall. Mm-hmm. Like they were falling like they were lying on a table in front of a green screen, sticking their arms up. And it was an end of a movie. It was a perfect end of the movie to me, because it was just like, okay, this is completely ridiculous. Like this, and the ending is just a shock ending, and it doesn't even look like it's real. It looked like it was a dream. And so I was thinking that at the end, then we would see the character who had fallen wake up in a cold sweat, and look at themselves and go, "Oh golly, I'm so lucky that was a dream." But whatever. So 2 thumbs down. 2 out of 5, 2 out of 10. I don't know.
Yeah, I got to give it 2 thumbs down too. There are many ways it could have been better. Like, there's not one single thing I can point to and be like, yeah, no, I like that. Like, no, not really. I guess maybe the guy who played the French spook, like he was pretty good. Yeah, I liked him, but
so is it? I'm having a hard time thinking of a worse movie that we've seen.
Wow.
That we've reviewed on the podcast.
Wow.
Together. Can you think of a worse movie?
I'd have to go back and look at our library of...
But off the top of your head.
53 other episodes that we've done. And
we usually tend to screen the movies pretty good before we watch them, so we have a sense of whether they're good or not. And this one we kind of jumped right in on because it was new.
Yeah, and we were like, oh, this is something that we can watch at home in the 2 hours of free time we have on Monday night, instead of having to fit a movie in the theater into our busy schedules. And this is our reward. Netflix, you effed us.
We want our 2+ hours back.
Right. I want the 80 cents of the $13.81 I spend every month on my Netflix subscription back.
I think that's I think we have a dissatisfied customer. Isn't there some sort of like satisfaction guaranteed clause in Netflix? I'm sure there is.
Well, if this is the worst thing that we've watched on Netflix and 3 years of having Netflix, that's pretty good.
I've watched some bad things solo, so.
Well, that's true.
Oh, speaking of solo, I mean, there's that wasn't this bad though.
Yeah, no, Solo is wow, shockingly, I can't believe
you're defending Solo.
We're defending Solo. What about what did we see when we double dipped? Was it Solo? Because we double dipped The Newsroom or whatever that was with Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep, and then we...
Oh, the paper.
The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi was pretty bad as well.
Really? But the special effects were still pretty good, and the story was like... At least it had a thread. I mean, it was tired and old, but at least
it was horrible. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, so we're not going to go back into everything we hated because we want to end on a positive note.
Right. We're all about the positive here at Coco and Daltz.
Because it's a beautiful spring day, and
the sun is actually shining in our small Connecticut town.
And we are filled with hope for the future, which you will not be if you watch The Last Thing He Wanted. So don't watch it.
So don't watch it. Recommendation is don't watch it.
Don't watch it.
So if that's it, you have no other thoughts on the last thing he said? What is the last thing he wanted?
And what is the last thing he wanted? Was that an allusion to like her dad?
Yeah,
the last thing he wanted was for her to score the big arms deal?
No, I think the last thing he wanted was for what happened to her at the end of the movie.
Oh, you think that's what
Kaputski.
Her dad wanted?
No, I think that's the last thing he wanted was for her to fall into the ocean into a painting and look like she was lying on a green screen table.
You kind of just spoiled the ending.
I know, I did. I know.
And I don't understand what you're talking about. You led me into it. So on that note...
He didn't want his daughter to die.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
See what I'm saying?
Okay. All right.
Okay. And so if you made it this far, listener, we
Thank you.
apologize for the spoiler for the movie that you're not going to watch.
So for another week, I'm not Daltz.
And I'm not Coco.